Oh, sorry, I'm gonna need a snap.
Yeah. Hello and welcome back to the Up and Coming Artist Podcast. I'm Christian, a photographer.
And I'm Ben, an animator. And I do have to say, the most feedback we have ever gotten on any episode ever was the one with this guy, Napoleon Chavez. Welcome back.
Hey!
By popular request.
Hold on. Okay, so I have been using the audio of you cheering, like, in every episode, so I think we need some new updated audio. So let's do that again. We'll rewind. And here's Napoleon Chavez. Woo!
So you go ahead and cut that in however you so please. I was gonna bring. You read my mind and brought that up before I could.
Okay, good.
I was like, because I would listen to episodes after, like Luigi and Kaya and other people, and I just kept hearing it. And I was like, okay, good.
Yeah.
I'm forever a part of this podcast.
Yes, which we're so grateful for. And for those who didn't listen to episode 7, Napoleon is an animator, storyboard artist, stop-motion fabricator, comic creator, character designer, visual development / concept artist, and co-creator of the clothing line, Uncle Doggy.
Which you're wearing right now?
Yes, I know. I'm sporting it now.
For audio listeners, Ben is wearing a black t-shirt with 3 pugs in a window, and the caption says, "Life can be rough sometimes." Rough is spelled like dog rough.
Yeah. Well, I had to support you. This was at the pop-up gallery that we were at not that long ago. So, well, actually at the recording of this podcast not that long ago, but when this episode comes out, it was probably like a year ago. So.
But before we get into that, I actually want to hear a little bit about some stuff we didn't talk about last time you were on here.
Oh, wow, okay.
You have done a lot of illustration and character design, as well as the animation stuff that you have done, and we kind of skipped over that last time, so I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
What's fascinating to me about it, I forget who said it. I want to say it was Sean Galloway. He's like an artist, Cheeks on Instagram. Oh, you have some of his... Oh my gosh, you actually have the statue.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, wow. Yeah, he's like one of my favorite artists. He was the art director on the Spectacular Spider-Man show in 2008. And he was the character designer for that show. And one of the things he said about it was that essentially you're a casting director as far as like picking like the characters, as far as like deciding like who these characters are. And I just thought that was so fascinating that you have like that much control over a show when you're doing that aspect of it. It's like you are like setting the tone for this entire series or this entire short. And I've always found that incredibly satisfying. Yeah, like incredibly satisfying, like something like you get to put your stamp on it, you know, because it's like it's you setting the groundwork for what these characters look like and what they specifically do. And the thing is, there's like so much that goes into character design, like shape language or color theory, that like I still feel like I still need to get better at, because I wouldn't necessarily call myself a character designer, but other people have done it, so I just never say no.
Accepted.
Yeah, I'll just accept it.
Yeah.
Because it's like lately, a thing that I've been feeling is like a lot of my art has been getting kind of stagnant, just because like I haven't done the exploration part of art, of like playing around with different shapes or going out in life drawing or observing other people. And I think that's one of the biggest parts of being a character designer is like experimenting. And like to be a good character designer, you have to look for something that people aren't necessarily seeing, like a person, the shape of someone's head, or like what shape doesn't exactly look like the person, but what's a good shape that represents that person like immediately. So there's a lot that goes into character design that's more interpretation than it is actually representing the person.
Gotcha. It's a little more abstract.
Yeah. Like good character design will look a lot more abstract than representational.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I actually wanted to ask about that along with character design, because you were talking about kind of getting somebody's likeness just now. So you've done portraiture and even on your Instagram. Kaya Herman, who's been on the podcast before, is someone you've drawn. I mean, just to name off a few, like Alexis Novak, Aubrey Plaza, your friend Ralph, who does the Ralph vlogs on YouTube, which I love those. So
we did one.
Yeah. Hey, the drawings are good though. The caricatures are great. So all I was gonna say about that is you were talking about capturing likeness, but also abstracting it. So like, what are you looking for?
You can always just look for like the big features, like look for someone's nose. What do their eyes look like? Like, if someone has like a slightly bigger nose, you can always accentuate it and make the nose bigger. It's a lot like a composition of like you're directing the audience's eye to a certain part. So it's like, okay, what's the part of their body that's like the most eccentric? Like, what's the part that like you can really like push? And I feel like I'm trying to remember like what was one of the best character designs I've done. I've done one of Kaya on my Instagram, and I always like, she's pretty easy because she has like glasses. All right, boom, glasses. Yeah, you know. And it's like you could get it with like glasses and like her eyebrows are like two features that it's like, okay, if I get those right, then the rest of it, like, it can kind of look a little off, but it'll still look like her. So it's like you don't have to get every single little detail right. It's just like the bare essentials, like kind of like when you're doing gesture drawing. It's like it's about getting the form and getting the structure right, and maybe not necessarily of like getting the lines defined or shading it properly. It's like it's just getting the essential part of it so that it reads well, because clarity is such an important thing. And if you can get the essential part clear, then you've already done your job.
Do you think that's starting to go into the idea of like you're trying to capture the feeling of a person's face more than like the actual picture of that person's face?
I think you said it. I think you said it very perfectly. I had a painting teacher. I don't know if you took Andy Dickinson.
No, I didn't.
That might not even be his name. But
I'm pretty sure it is.
One of the things I remember, we were trying to paint like an aluminum can, like as part of a still life, and one of the things he said, it's like I don't want you to paint like. Don't paint like what the can looks like. I want you to paint what the can feels like. Which I was like, I didn't understand.
You're like what?
Yeah, it's like he really liked Matthew McConaughey, so he was like really into the idea of just messing with our minds. Like there was one day he walked in and like looked at someone's painting and said, "Oh, well, you can't unscramble an egg," and then walked away from So he was a bit of a jokester, but yeah, he was like, it's like, oh, like the way the light hits the can, it illuminates in a certain way, and it's like, and I want to see the volume of that can like turn, like I want to see like the curvature of that can as well as the illumination of the light on it, instead of the shape of the can and the detail of like the rings. And it's like he was like talking more about like the audience knows what something looks like, but doesn't necessarily know why certain things register. So it's like, what's the feeling? Because humans will go more off of feeling than they will of like sight.
Interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah.
That brings up something to me. You were talking about kind of starting off like a drawing or something. You were talking about shapes. You've also talked about lines. What do you like to start with? Because I know some people like to, they'll take the silhouette of a character and start with that. But what do you like to start with?
A lot of the times, like, I usually start with the eyes, or sometimes I'll start with the head. It depends what I'm going for. Like, if I already know, like, what it is I want, sometimes I'll start with, like, the structure of, like, the body, or, like, what the like, I always have to kind of think, like, what's the prompt in a way of, like, okay, what am I going for? If I'm just, like, freestyling, like, whatever, I'll start with the eyes and the nose. If I kind of know, like, okay, I want a character that's, like, round and has, like, small, stubby little legs and, like, a weird big chin or whatever, it's like, sometimes I'll, like, outline the shape with line and then like fill it in later, because it's like I've always liked having the structure of something and then going into it and building off of that. Because I feel that's very important. John Mulaney has a really good joke in one of his stand-up specials where it's like everyone has written a happy birthday sign where they start with the big H and the big A and they go, and then they get to the end of the sign and they didn't even finish the word happy. Yeah. And then they start like writing the letters really skinny at the end. So it's like, that's always, when I'm doing character design, that's always what I want to try to avoid, of like being so ambitious at the beginning and then like trying like to consolidate things at the end. Like I've drawn plenty of pictures on like post-it notes when I was working my office job, of where I would draw like the bust of a person and it's like all detailed, and then you get to the bottom of the page and it's like their abdomen kind of shrinks because it's like, I gotta fit it in there. So usually like getting the structure down, like it's like where is like the design going to exist in, like kind of give yourself a box to work within. And I know like a lot of people will do like the silhouettes first. We'll get into like where I work now, but I actually had to do some character design this week and last week. And we can get into that momentarily, because I'm actually an assistant editor there. But because they know I draw, they're like, oh, well, we actually want a mascot for our, we want a mascot for the show, so could you design that? So I had to draw like a bunch of cute cartoon characters. Like on like a Friday morning, I just drew a bunch, sent them off, and they were like, we like this one, that one. And then I had to like create silhouettes of like, this is potentially what the silhouette could be.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so without realizing it, without having proper training, have already started doing character design for a Disney show. So
Wow. That's like,
that's
and let's
crazy.
talk about that for a second. I do want to circle back around to it at the end, but just talk about, since we didn't say at the beginning what your job is, and a little bit of what you've done, because I know you just started there in the last 2 weeks.
It was the last 2
Whatever
weeks.
you're allowed to say.
Yeah.
Well, it's I believe I'm allowed to say because it's the second season of a show that's already aired. It's for this show on Disney XD called Player Select, which is where this production company in Van Nuys called The Attack will take Let's Plays from YouTube and like cut them up and edit them in like a 22-minute chunk of programming to then put on Disney XD. And it's like we'll add jokes and we'll cut around stuff and we'll like put like little animations and put like little clip art, just kind of like to sweeten it up, just to make it more and more enjoyable for like younger kids on Disney to like watch these Let's Plays that otherwise don't have these like extra jokes.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun, and I've been learning a lot from like the editors that are there that are like putting in different jokes, and it's actually very similar to what I did at my previous job at Funhouse.
Yeah, and you were just back there, right? Not that long ago?
Yeah, I feel like we're going backwards. Yes, I was at a company called Tempo Storm, and I was doing like I was doing production assistant work for them for like since like July all the way up until like I want to say October. And I was just filling in whatever need they had. Like I was a replay operator. Like we might have talked about that, of me like grabbing highlights from like their esports events and then like making highlight reels of them. And then they had me start doing camera and sound operating for like their live events. So like I went to BlizzCon. I went to like different events in Burbank, like at the old like Jay Leno studios, like Burbank Studios.
Nice.
But now it's like the Blizzard Arena, so it's like it's all like esports.
Whoa.
It's really, really cool. It feels like Disneyland. It honestly, it's really, really nice. And one of my favorite things is like they still have like they pay homage to like all the greats that used to work there, like Jay Leno, Johnny Carson. My boss was walking through it with like one of the other production assistants, and he points. He's like, "Hey, Pat. Dude, that's the CEO of Blizzard," and he points at like old like Don Rickles, and it's just like it just made me laugh. and like he's like, "Oh yeah, okay, sure." So yeah, I did like a lot of camera and sound operating, and when you do that stuff, you realize like, oh, I really don't want to do this stuff. Like, well, because for me, I was like, it's like that's not where my heart was at. And
Yeah,
it's like it was just a lot of production assistant work, and I was happy to work, and I was able to do it because I was working with friends. Like you met him at the pop-up, Alejandro Beltran.
Yeah.
He's the other half of Uncle Doggy.
Gotcha.
He came up with a lot of the designs, and we did like a lot of the business back end stuff together. But he's the one that got me he's like one of the producers at Tempo Storm. He's got me all the production assistant work, and I was doing a lot of the camera and sound operating with him. And then Funhouse was like a week after CTNX.
Okay.
Because probably about like 2 or 3 weeks, maybe like sometime at the beginning of November or end of October, I got an email from my old producer at Funhouse, and he said, "Hey buddy, I saw that you were in the hospital. I hope everything's okay. Also, we're gonna have some work that we need you to do in December. Do you think you can come and help us out like at the end of the year while we're like in crunch mode?"
That was like a half-hearted get well soon card. It was really like come work for me card.
Well, to be honest, like this, like I haven't mentioned it yet, but like this kind of like plays into the like a lot of people at this point in time, like they try to get into the industry. It's like, oh, I just got to break into the industry. I got to network. You always hear that word, network. I got to, and I promise this will connect back to what I'm talking about how I started at Funhouse again. Like, there's no real set way to break into the industry or network. So I promise this will connect. But
I trust you.
It was sometime in October. I was with my buddy Alex at his apartment, and I was storyboarding something for like this portfolio review. And my friend Alex, he used to do this thing where he would, like, on Spotify, turn on Metallica's Seek and Destroy. And it's, like, this song with this heavy metal guitar. And the joke was he would turn it on and I'd have to stop whatever I'm doing and do, like, an interpreted dance. And it went, like, the joke was, oh, it looks like he's possessed. I was hamming it up. I was putting on a show. Perhaps a little too much. I was like, hey, Mike, check it out. I'm Spider-Man. And then, like, I jump up on the wall and then fall immediately on my shoulder and pop my shoulder out.
Oh.
And then, like...
He was possessed. I'm just kidding.
And then, like, I get up and it's like I had all this adrenaline, like, my hearing went away. And then, like, everyone was still laughing because they thought it was part of the bit. Like, oh, he's playing it up. Oh, yeah, he's playing it up. And there's, like, one of my friends is on the couch. He's like, oh, wait, no. He actually got hurt. And then later on, I was like, well, then why did you say anything? Because he was just on the couch like, dude, no, Napo, he's actually hurt. Just like, okay, we gotta take you to the hospital. We gotta go. And I'm just like, I'm like delusional. And they're like, Napo, do you have insurance? Do you have like an insurance card? And I'm like, I got AAA. Like, that whole thing happened. And then, I put, like, what is it? We had video of it and, like, pictures of it. And I just put it on my Twitter, like, oh, this happened to me on Monday night.
Yeah.
And then, fast forward, like, a month later, my producer messages me through email saying, like, hey, I saw you in the hospital. I hope you're okay. So, and I think I had messaged Funhouse, like, sometime back in September when I was working at Tempo. I was like, hey, if you guys ever need any contract work, let me know. I'm free. I'm available. You never know what you do in your life will lead you to where you want to be. Mm-hmm. So just me being me, like dancing and being silly and ending up in the hospital, I feel like part of that had to do with me getting the job at Funhouse just because like, it reminded my producer that, oh yeah, this guy exists.
Yeah.
There's really no right way to like break into the industry. Some people, like Kaya Herman, are really good at not networking, she's just really good at talking to people. Mm-hmm. She's a very good people person. I'm usually somewhat of a good people person, but like have my own way of interacting with people.
When Metallica is on, that's when it's happening.
Yeah, when Metallica's on, that's when it's happening.
Yeah. But I think this is a good point, because I think a lot of people almost sell to young people this idea of, like, this is how you have to do it. If you don't do it this way, then, like, you're never going to make it. Mm-hmm. And what you're saying is, like, that's not true. You just kind of live life, and things happen.
Yeah. Okay, so Sarah Montoya. Yeah. She's, like, super positive, and I think one time she told me, like, as soon as I graduated, one of the things she said was, like, don't feel that, like, the job is the end goal. Like, live your life doing something that you love doing at that moment, and then, like, in other spare time, like, work on getting yourself to where you need to be, but don't make your life miserable in the meantime. Like, find something that you can love to do while you get to the other place in your life, which is really interesting, which nobody had ever really told me before, and I think she'd be a great person to get on the podcast.
I've asked her. Yeah.
If you can, she'd be a phenomenal person to get on the podcast. She has so much energy. So shout out to Sarah, but there's no real way to do it. But like Sarah said, like, do what you can in the meantime to still make your life fulfilling while you get to that other place. So
to hop on that then, so recently you tabled, as you kind of mentioned. The reason you tabled is because you and a friend of yours have kind of started a t-shirt line.
Yeah, like a weird clothing brand thing.
Uncle Doggy, right?
Uncle Doggy. This was
Shout out
to Uncle Doggy. UncleDoggy.com. We have t-shirts. You can buy them in a bunch of sizes. We have 3 different designs on UncleDoggy.com. I wish I had a promo code. I wish I came prepared to like...
Oh, that would have been great. It's all our middle names.
If you could cut it into the podcast later...
Cut here. And boom, this is Ben from the future letting you know that we got a promo code. Hell! Super thanks to Napoleon and Alex for getting that to us. So if you go on UncleDoggy.com, that's UncleDoggy.com, the promo code for our podcast listener exclusive free shipping is going to be UCA podcast for the Up and Coming Artist podcast. That's all capital, Up and Coming Artist podcast promo code. Thanks again, Napoleon.
Cut here, and we'll insert a promo code that I'll send you audio for. That you can cut in.
Please just type a transcript as audio into one of those robot voices. It's like, promo code.
Yeah. We got to talk about how Uncle Doggy came about in the first place.
Well, it actually started as like a way for me and Alex to do something outside of work. So it was like he had always talked to me about wanting to like make t-shirts and like make like just silly little designs. Like he just wanted to work on a project outside of the normal esports stuff.
Yeah.
Like we just talked about it for a little bit. I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. Whenever you want to start that, we can do it. And it was like sometime in October or November. And
so all this was happening at like the same time, right?
Yeah.
Like,
so much of this is bouncing. I had a lot going on from like September to now. Like there was always different projects going on.
Yeah.
And
That's awesome.
it was one. Oh, thank you. And it was one of those things that like it was always in the back burner, but we never had like a really good like motivation to get us there. And what really motivated us to actually like say, hey, we need to start making designs, we need to start making stickers, we need to start doing X, Y, and Z was Ava from Ground Zero's. Shout out. She emailed me saying like, hey, we know that you applied to table at the June event, but we're going to have like these little pop-ups for like up-and-coming artists. And I was just going to do it anyways. I was just like, yeah, that sounds awesome. I'll do that. And then I told Alex about it, and he's like, okay, great, that's awesome. And that created a deadline for us. So like the whole month of January, while I was working at Funhouse, I would go home and like finish designs, and we'd hop on Discord and like just talk about like, okay, like how much would we charge for a shirt? What's the service we're going to go with to like manufacture these shirts? He'd give me an idea. It's like, oh, what do you think about this? And I would draw it up, and he'd be like, oh, that's cool. Could we change these colors? So it was like this very collaborative effort. Because like an artist can only do so much. Like I would draw things and I'd be like, all right, I'm done, post it on Instagram. But like with that second person, the art became so much better because he was like, hey, maybe change the color on this. Napo, I don't think that this is working here. What if we changed it to this?
Yeah.
What if we bumped up the saturation? And it's a bunch of things that as an artist, when you're doing everything, kind of go out the window a little bit because you forget
you're doing everything else. Yeah,
you forget to think about so many things. So it was so great to have like that collaborative effort, and I think that's like when like two heads are better than one. It's really good, and it kind of touches on what we talked about the last podcast of having people around you to kind of just elevate the art and bring it to like a better place. Like that design that you have on your shirt, the window, that one's Alex's design. I just drew it because he had a design and he's like, I want this. And I was like, all right. And I just drew it and made sure that it was like ready to be like produced on a shirt.
Yeah.
So it was a very big collaborative effort. And yes, I'm the artist, but like Alex is just as much the artist as well. Like he was coming up with designs and like I was just kind of cleaning them up. But like it was like a really good like collaborative effort that we did off on the side of all the stuff we were doing. And like, so it was like I was working at Funhouse, going home and doing Uncle Doggy designs. And then I had started
going to the hospital. I'm just kidding.
That was back in October.
I know. I'm just kidding.
But like, I also started one of those brainstorm classes, which we could get into.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, just to kind of finish the thought of like Uncle Doggy, that was like our avenue to like work on something together and just be creative in like a smaller little pocket and like push ourselves to like do something we had never done before.
Yeah.
Like doing the stickers, like doing the shirts. And it was really, really fun. And then after the pop-up, I told Alex, I was like, hey, I kind of need a break. Not a like break from designs, break from X, Y, and Z. But like keep in mind, I was working with Alex since like the month of July, all the way through to like the end of November, and then doing the Uncle Doggy stuff, working with him, doing all of that stuff. And the thing is, it's like he's like one of my best friends in the world, but anytime I got together with him, it was just talking about work. It's like, oh, what are we going to do about what are we going to do about the expenses for January? What are we going to do about like this shirt? Oh, we need to set up a PayPal account. Like, well, what bank account is the money going to go into? Blah, blah, blah. And what was really nice is once the pop-up was over, and I started my new job, it had I was able to get my friend back. And I think that's a very important thing of like having like that separation.
Yeah.
Because you could very easily get burned out doing all these other projects. And I know this is not necessarily what you were asking with Uncle Doggy, but this is just kind of where my brain is going in that like, because I was doing like contract work and then doing a project on the side and then doing the brainstorm class, which we'll get into right now, and then like moving and starting a new job. Like there's so many spinning plates, and as a person you have to make a decision on like, okay, one of these got to give, or like two of them got to go away because it's like it's just too much, and that's a very easy way to get burned out. So like right now I'm not necessarily really working with Alex on anything because it's like, I just kind of want my friend back. You know? And I'll talk about the brainstorm class right now. I started it in the middle of January, and I signed up for it before I even knew I was going to come back to Funhouse in January. And I was like, okay, I could probably do this for now, because I was at Funhouse and then had to drive an hour and a half from Culver City to Burbank to get to class every Tuesday night, which is fine. And I was like, all right, I paid for this, I'm learning, this is just another thing I got going on. I always feel that it's good to have multiple projects, like, give a task to a busy person and they'll find time to like make it happen. If you give it to somebody who has all the time in the world, they'll never find the time to do it, It's more of like a work ethic thing. But I started going to that class and I was like doing the homework, and it was just this other thing I had to worry about. And then the pop-up stuff, I had to start giving more attention to the pop-up because it was coming up. And then I had to, because I went in for the interview for the new job at the Attack and got the job, I was like, okay, 2 days after the pop-up, I started this new job. And then in the middle of that, I had a buddy of mine say, hey, I have a free room at my house. Do you want it? Which meant now I had to start thinking about moving. And so it was like so many things at once. My life was changing so much in the span of like 2 weeks. And I think as an artist, it's important to know your limits, to know that you can't do everything. And if you want to do everything, you're going to need some help. But it's like you can only spin so many plates. Like if you have like 2 things going on, you can do those 2 things really well. If you have like 3 things going on, one of those got to give. So it's like,
and you're doing like 18 things. I'm coming on the podcast, so
it's like, as an artist, it's like we want to take on the world and we want to be ambitious, and it's great, but we also have to understand like our limitations, because we are human, and we have to give ourselves time to just kind of breathe a little bit. Because one of the things lately I've been feeling stagnant of like, oh, I don't feel as creative. That was a conversation I was having with a friend of mine earlier. Like being in LA, one of the things I noticed is so many people are consuming a lot. They watch a lot of stuff. It's like, oh, I saw that show on Netflix. I saw all of the show. I saw all of this movie. And there's like so much, and I'm like, how do you guys have time to consume all this stuff? Because like my biggest issue was like, I always felt that like my art wasn't as good as it could be because I wasn't inspired enough to make it. And I always felt like you get inspiration from experiences, whether that's going to the beach, hanging out with people, doing a bunch of things you don't like, doing a bunch, like watching a bunch of movies or TV shows or reading books. Like by consuming things and experiencing life, you get inspiration to make the art. But it's like, for me, I was like, well, I don't have time to consume because I have to make art. But then it's like, this art is not good because I didn't spend time consuming. So it's like this balance of like, okay, do you want to consume and be inspired, or do you want to make art? Because you kind of need both of them. Because it's like, you need both of them. And right now I'm at a transitionary point in my life to where like I haven't been creating as much just because I've been moving around so much. But like,
and honestly, just my little opinion piece here, I think it's extremely important to remember that like as artists, people push you to make the best art possible.
Right.
But if all you're doing is consuming art, the only thing you can spit up is technical art.
Right.
Whereas if you go experience something in the real world, now that's something you can put into your art that adds a lot more emotional weight to everything that you're creating.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's important to like give yourself the time to do that kind of stuff. So that goes back to what I was saying of like not putting too much on your plate, like as an artist, like knowing your limits. And I know that sounds counterintuitive to like, you got to be the best artist you can, you got to do the stuff, you got to like always you got to do the stuff, you got to make the thing. But like, it's like sometimes it just gets to be so much, and you have to like, you have to make time for the people in your life. Like I came here to see you guys, because honestly, the podcast.
Oh, shucks.
Well, well, here's the thing. The thing is, I love the idea of the podcast just because it's like a deadline, and it's like it's an easy like, oh, well, I'm gonna go do the podcast. It's a good excuse to hang out.
Yeah.
Like because like that makes like scheduled visits essentially, like play dates or whatever. So it's
Let's just call it that. It's not a podcast anymore. It's the up and coming artist play day.
That sounds great. But yeah, it's like making time for the people in your life is probably one of the more important parts about being an artist, because it's so easy to just like shut yourself in your room, just make art.
Yeah.
But then it's like at what cost? Like your art will definitely take a hit from not being with people.
Yeah.
You know.
And that's actually what I wanted to commend you for, because despite you having so many spinning plates and doing so many jobs since we graduated, you still are texting me or like, you know, hanging out with friends. I'll see you on Instagram, taking the time. And I'm like thinking in my mind, like, Napoleon's such a busy guy, and yet he's still giving himself to be like, hey Ben, how are you doing? You know, and that means a lot to me. And it also shows your character, but it also shows like how you've been practicing the things that you're talking about.
And I want to go off on that note. Speaking of getting out and meeting people, you guys tabled under your clothing brand Uncle Doggy.
Yes, to get
recently.
Back to that.
Yeah, and I would love to ask you, like, how was that experience of tabling? Was this your first time tabling?
This was my first time tabling, and I had been wanting to do tabling for a while, just because, like, we had mentioned Sarah before. Like, me and Luigi went to like a show where she had some of her art. And, like, Luigi kind of offhandedly mentions, like, oh, dude, I would really want a table. And Sarah was like, you should do it! Yeah. And the only bummer was that, like, Luigi was so busy with his brainstorm class that it was just me and Alex. But Luigi came to support because he's the best. But, yeah, the experience tabling, like, it was... like, I got there, like, an hour before to set up my table. And Alex was coming down from Van Nuys with the shirts and the stickers, and was late. So I was sitting there. I had brought like a table, I had brought some chairs, I had brought extension cords, I had brought a VHS TV combo that I had plugged into my laptop and played like 30-minute video. Like I had went into Premiere the previous night and edited a bunch of like cartoons I had made, a bunch of short films that Alex had done, and made like 30 minutes essentially of programming to play on this TV. Because one of the questions I've always heard, like, at tabling things, it's like, oh, like, what do you do? And it was like, I had a business card that said character designer and storyboard artist and whatever. Like, I have, like, my business card and I have this clothing brand, but it's like, I wanted to, like, show people who came by, it's like, oh, what do? I do this. Like, I've done cartoons and voices and animation and, like, short films, and I've, like, acted in live action stuff, and, like, I can put this whole thing together. It's like, I wanted to show, like, hey, there's more to me than just, like, oh, there's just, like, 4 stickers here. Like, and it helped because the event opened and I had no product because like, Alex was still coming down from LA because it was, like, terrible traffic that day.
Oh, yeah.
It was a lot of fun just to, like, see people get excited about the stuff we had. I was, like, tabling next to Jake, and, like, Jake had this giant sign and a banner that said Jake Lemke Art. Shout out! Sarah was actually gonna not be in town. She had, like, a show she had to go to, and then she shows up at some point, and then, like, I'm like, well, look who decided to show up. And then she started going around and getting people to come to the booth, and she started, like, poaching other people. It's like, oh, DeMarco, get over here. Oh, you get over here. You come over here. And she was, like, getting people to come to the booth. One of my favorite things about the pop-up was I was able to bring different parts of my friend groups together. Like, my mom showed up, and she was, like, talking to people, and she was having a great time.
And that's just another question I have then, because when you came on the podcast, talked about the importance of community and going out and meeting with people. How was it on the other side of the table?
The other side of the table, it was really nice, because, like, it just felt like that was, like, one of the happiest nights I had in a while, just because, like, I had all these people, like, in one spot, and it's like, that's such a hard thing to do, you know? So it's like, it was honestly just like a big party, and at the last hour of the event, we disconnected the laptop that was playing videos, and, like, Alex and Luigi plugged in Smash Brothers, and we're just playing Smash Brothers at my booth, at the Uncle Doggy booth, and, like, they were just playing, and there was a crowd of people just watching them play Smash Brothers. and Sarah was like selling stuff to whoever was there, and I was able to like leave and look at other booths. And we even had some people that like, because the website's up, we had some people actually buy the shirts from the website. It's like, oh, you don't have it? All right, well, I'll just buy it off the website.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's great.
Yeah, because that was one of our biggest goals, was like to have that ready for the pop-up. You know, just to have like that option available.
Yeah, like you were causing people to come together and to talk about art and to feel that sense of community, and because of your booth and Jake's booth as well, right there. Do you feel like there was a different feeling that came from that than just going to an event versus like being a reason for people to go to an event?
I'm a little sheepish to say I was the reason why people showed up.
Of course, that's not exactly what I'm saying.
But it's like, as far, because I guess I've just never thought of it that way, of like, these people showed up for me. Because it was also Alex that was there, and it was like, it was this interesting separation of like, it wasn't like, hey, I'm Napoleon Chavez, this is my art, validate me.
Yeah.
It was like, no, this is our clothing brand, Uncle Doggy, and we're here as Uncle Doggy, and like, we're business partners, and like, it's like, people didn't come here for me, they came here for Uncle Doggy. But yeah, it was nice to know that like, something I made was worth people's time to come out. Because like, I have one of the editors from Funhouse lives in Downey. And he actually came down to the pop-up show for a little bit and bought a shirt and some stickers. So it was like, it was nice to know that something that like I'd worked on for like 2 months like had value to people, you know. So, and like having the people like actually come and talk to me about it, of like, oh my gosh, this is great, we love this, we love that, and people like, I'm definitely buying a sticker. That was a very good feeling to know that like, okay, so like I'm doing something right.
Yeah,
you know?
That's awesome. And to anyone who is interested in tabling that would like to maybe follow in that same footsteps, any piece of advice that you would give them?
I'm going to give the same piece of advice that Sarah gave me, and I'm going to keep bringing up Sarah because she's done this for a living.
Shout out! Yes!
Shout out to Sarah. One of the things she told me before we even did it, she was like, don't focus on making money, you won't. She was like, because the thing is, she was like, it's not about making money, you're going there, presenting yourself, because people are going there wanting to ask questions. They're going to go there wanting to talk to you. They're not necessarily going to want to buy something. They're going to want to maybe talk to you about your product or talk to you about you. You know, so it's when you go into tabling, don't think about it. Don't think about the money. Think about the interactions you're going to have with people, because that's the most important part, because people are coming to the table to talk to you. Okay. You're there to interact with them.
Gotcha. So networking versus sales.
Yeah.
I think you're just such a personable guy, you know what I mean? Like, and that's, and I didn't want to comment on networking necessarily, but it's just like, I think that's what's so cool about it, and what Sarah's advice is so true, and it's something that you already practice already, is just you care about people and talking with people. And I think that's what I felt at your booth, which was so great. And so I think it's awesome you taking Sarah's advice, but also I think it's just you naturally, and I think that's why you guys had a successful booth.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, like, it's like you had mentioned like something about the dirty word of networking or something. The only reason why to me it has like a negative connotation is because like people, like teachers or faculty, will say you got a network, but it's like people don't necessarily know what that means. Like going out of your way for people, like I said, like how you were talking about like including people and bringing people together, that's your network. That's your networking. Like us talking, us doing this is the networking part of it. The only jobs I've ever gotten was because of my immediate network of people. Like Alex got me some of the stuff at Tempo Storm. Adam from Funhouse got me the stuff from Funhouse. And the way I got the job that I'm working at right now as an assistant editor at The Attack was because Alex used to work at that studio, and he almost worked at that studio with me, but he got counter-offered by his company, and he stayed with them. Yeah. But he said, hey, to the hiring manager, is like, hey, you should hire this Napoleon guy. I think he's really great. He's worked at Rooster Teeth. He's done stuff at Tempo Storm. I think he'd be really good. You should hire him. And the employer was supposed to call me on a Friday. And I like blocked out a lunch. I didn't go with my friends to lunch. I was just waiting for his call, and he never called me. And I was like, okay, he must have went with somebody else or whatever. And I texted my friend. I was like, hey, should I should I send him a follow-up and say, like, hey, maybe we could reschedule the call or this and that, blah, blah, blah. I was like, what's the etiquette to go forward with this person?
Yeah. That's a great question.
And he said, like, he's like, oh, yeah, he told me to say sorry that, like, he didn't call you during lunch. He didn't call you. He called your boss instead. Because my boss at Funhouse actually used to work with him at 2 previous companies.
Wow.
Yeah, so, like, he was like, yeah, he didn't call you because he called your boss. And then...
and you're like, gulp.
Well, like, it was gulp, but that was, like, not only did I get a recommendation from my buddy Alex, I got a recommendation from someone that that employer trusted, because he used to work with them at G4 and at Machinima.
Gotcha.
So, like, that got me the interview because, like, I had 2 recommendations from 2 very credible people. And
So would you say that rather than using the term networking, it's more important to do community building?
Community building, I like that a lot better. That sounds a lot more positive. I really do like that, because networking just kind of sounds like it's just like, ooh, this is my systematic way to, like, further my career. And, like, at Funhouse, I was talking to one of the editors. It's like, oh, yeah, I did, like, camera... Because he was like, oh, what have you been up to? It's like, oh, I did camera operating and replay operating and sound operating and production assistant. And I built a crate for, like, this PUBG thing. Like, I had to build, like, a crate that looked like it was in the game. And that took, like, a whole day. Anyways, did a ton of stuff. I've done a ton of stuff at that company. And the editor was like, how did you land that job? And he was like, oh, yeah, a friend of mine, he recommended me for it. And he's, like, pouring coffee into a mug. And he's like... That's how it is, man. It's just people recommending you. And he was like, I have never gotten a job based off of my resume. It's always just people just recommending me for stuff. And I know that's probably not what listeners of this podcast want to hear, that the only jobs I've ever gotten was because I've been recommended by friends.
Yeah.
Like, my resume has done nothing for me. But that's not to say that your resume is not important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think your resume is a good representation of your job history of, like, hey, I've been here, I've been there, I've been here. Because when I got out of school, my stepdad was telling me, you need to get a job, because, like, what an employer is going to see is, like, yeah, you worked at this company, but then there was, like, 6 months of you not working. And it's like, okay, why were you not working? That, like, raises questions. So that's why I was like, hey, I got to take what I can get. Because I was up for different positions throughout these past, like, 7 months or whatever. And I got turned down quite a few times, like, because I didn't know character animator, which is an Adobe program.
Right.
I didn't, I wasn't qualified to work at Barnes & Noble or whatever. Like, I got turned down for a lot of different positions. And one of my producers, the one that emailed me, like, hey, buddy, I heard you were in the hospital.
Yeah.
That guy, I was talking with him early in the year, and he's like, hey, you're young, you have to take what you can get right now at this point. And it's like, you're young enough to where you can't really be picky. You know, you have to just build some experience and, like, have some sort of merit to your work ethic. And that's what I was doing this past, like, couple months of just like getting whatever I could get, doing the work experience. You can't systematically like say, oh, I want to get to this person and network with this person because they can get me to this person and then I can do this. It's like you can't plan that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, which is why I feel like when people say networking, it's like you need to talk to this person so you can talk to them and string over here. It's like because you can't plan things that you just don't know. Like these things are going to happen if you naturally are just a personable person and you're just putting yourself out there and putting yourself out there.
Yeah, but I think that's what's cool about it. I think, like, if I was to boil it down for myself, I think that's something that I would take away if I was listening to this is, like, just using your example, you care about other people, and that's what's gotten you the things that you've been able to do. And you weren't doing those things because you're like, that'll get me there in the future. It's like, no, I just care about you.
So, you did your community building, you've people recommended you, and you landed a pretty cool gig, I would say. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I can talk about it a little bit. My position at The Attack is assistant editor, which means that a producer will take like Let's Plays from YouTube and then put them into like a Premiere, like an Adobe Premiere sequence, and then I and another assistant editor will go through the episodes and like duplicate the footage and like crop like some of the footage so that way it can be manipulated by the editors if they need it for a joke. Just like giving them the option to like rescale and resize the video, and then we hand it off to the editor. And then the editor will like do jokes and like do slates between different things of like, oh, I want a joke here of this, that, and this, or I want these images. And then as the assistant editors, we will go in and look for like sound effects or music or like images that like help their jokes or help illustrate what they're trying to do. They make like this rough cut send it off to like producers. Right now we're still actually trying to figure out who sees the rough cut first. Like I think Disney's going to see the rough cut and they'll come back with their notes. And then we'll submit to them like what they call a fine cut. And then essentially then it's the assistant editor's job to make sure the audio isn't too loud, to make sure that all the audio tracks are in the correct track, because like Disney needs like 24 tracks of audio for TV. As assistant editors, me and this other guy need to make sure they're up to that standard and then rename everything what it needs to be renamed and then deliver it out. And with that, we need to make sure that we're keeping track of all the assets we're using. Because it's a Disney show, we can't just go to Google and just grab like, oh, I need an image of a duck.
Right.
We need to go to a video and image library that is approved from Disney, saying we have the right to use these images, and we have to go there, and we have a finite number of images we can grab per episode, because our license is like so many hundreds of dollars. And like we have to pay for every image we use, and we have to keep track of it on a spreadsheet. And like the games we're playing are like specifically licensed to where like we have the license to show footage of Crash Bandicoot in the show, and then Disney will then own the license to then play it on their network. So it's like it's really cool this season that like they're actually picking and choosing which games they want to showcase. So like one of my favorite games is Cuphead. I know you've heard of it, right?
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah, the Max Fleischer style game. So, like, one of the games... So, for TV purposes, they were saying... Like, this is just an example of something I did already the first week, was... For TV purposes, they were like, we want to illustrate that he's, like a life meter. It's like, we want to show that he's, like, losing lives. Like, we want to show it, because in Cuphead, like, the life meter is very tiny in the corner.
Yeah.
So they were like, oh, like I suggested in one of the writers' meetings, it's like, what if we had a Cuphead style drawing of like the talent's head? Jacksepticeye's the talent. What if we had like his head like kind of warbly and animated in the Max Fleischer style, but every time he takes a hit or loses a life, like the face gets more and more beat up.
Yeah.
So it's like just making like just images for the editor to then go in and manipulate.
Yeah.
So that way they time it to their footage. So already my first week I was already drawing different elements for the show.
Nice.
So like we even have like an asset list of like things we're getting from the image library. And then there's like, all right, here's a bunch of images that Napoleon's going to draw for us, because it's like something simple like clip art of a hand or an arrow, or like, hey, we need a very specific thing that doesn't exist. Can you draw it?
Yeah.
And that was part of why I got the position, was because like, as an assistant editor, we need to assist the editors with like getting these things, with like getting them the things they need for their joke.
Yeah.
So there was like a lot of things of like, yeah, we're gonna have the rights to a certain amount of images, but you can like draw things from scratch, and I'm like, yes, I can do that. Officially, I'm an assistant editor, but he keeps introducing me to people. It's like, oh, we have an illustrator and an animator, and it's like, that's great, but that's not my position title. And it's like, it's already to the point now where it's like, I have already so much assets that I need to make.
Yeah.
To where like it's like, I need to start spacing out like my time of like, okay, I need to make these ones, I need to make these assets, I need to make this. Like, so already my first 2 weeks, I've been making a ton of stuff for this show that's going to appear on Disney, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And like one of the things like, that like the executive producers talked to me about, they wanted to have like a little mascot character for the show, and they're like, oh yeah, can you just draw some cute drawings of characters? And then I was like, okay. So I was essentially doing character design and like silhouette shapes, and they're like, we like this shape. And then yesterday or 2 days ago, they were like, okay, can you give that silhouette a face and some colors? I was like, okay. I made a bunch of faces. I made different ways that it could look. And they're like, Kevin likes these ones, this one, and that one. And I gave it like color variations. It was like, okay, you're not going to like this. We like all of them. We were wondering if you could do like 6 variations of the character, and then we'll just use the 6 variations. And I'm like, okay, cool. Which means that I have to make this little character and then kind of like animate something to him, like a jump and a bounce to like when he pops up on screen. And that has to be done maybe in the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Like ready for the fine cut for Disney, which is cool. And I want to do it, but I talked to the producer, and I was like, hey, it's like, I will do this. but I also have my assistant editor duties that I also have to do. So it's like I'm constantly having something on my plate, but I'm enjoying myself because because it's like, to me, it's like I couldn't have asked for like a better thing to just like fall into my lap. And I think on the last podcast that I talked with you guys, you said like, where do you want to be in 5 years?
Yeah.
And I think I said that within 5 years, I want to be on some sort of television production, assisting in whatever I can, so hopefully somewhat drawing. And within not 5 years, it happened within 6 months. Yeah. So I'm not trying to toot my own horn when I say that.
The podcast made that happen. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I want to give a shout out to the Up and Coming Artist podcast.
Up and Coming Artist. Up and Coming Artist Playdate. Yeah.
Oh, dude, that could be your little meetup event.
Oh, hey.
Up and Coming Artist Playdate.
Cool.
There you go. You got to have a little meetup event.
That's right.
I did have a question. So, because you're doing so many things in, being an assistant editor as well as an illustrator / character designer, this is kind of a twofold question. Mm-hmm. We might have to finish out with this.
Yeah.
But what are some things like, say, programs that have helped you to be able to have that job and do the illustration, and what are some things you wish you'd known earlier?
Okay, one things that have always helped me is in I think I may have talked about this last time. In college, I took a Photoshop class. I took 2 different ones. One for like photography, and I had Miguel Baltazar in that class with me, and I learned a lot about Photoshop from a photographer's point of view. We won't get into that.
Yeah.
But, and then I also had Christian Hill, who's an illustrator, and I had like Photoshop experience from an illustrator's background. So like I'm pretty proficient in Photoshop, even though like when I look at my buddy Alex use Photoshop, he uses it completely different because he's a video editor and a filmmaker. But there's no real right way to use Photoshop. So what's helped me get to where I'm at was like I've been using Photoshop at Funhouse and like also just the experience there being at Funhouse of like being given a prompt and then like just visually as an artist knowing, okay, I need these elements for the joke to work. What are the important parts of the joke? What's necessary for this composition? Like, how do I not distract people? Like, what's helped me? Definitely Flash. I learned Adobe Flash in high school. And then Photoshop I really learned in college. Adobe Premiere I was using in high school. So just a passing knowledge of like Adobe Premiere and Adobe After Effects helped me in this job because some of the animations I made were like of like silhouettes of people clapping, and I animated those. Like I made essentially puppets of like the production team, lowered the saturation and the brightness and contrast on them, so they're just dark silhouettes. Like removed the arms and made them into puppet arms, and then in After Effects just animated them like clapping. So like. What's helped me in that position is having like a passing knowledge of Premiere because I don't know how to use it professionally, but I'll learn on the job. So it's like Premiere, After Effects, being proficient in Photoshop is a very, very big thing. And then knowing Adobe Flash and things that I wish I knew earlier. I wish I knew what I was worth earlier as far as money goes. Because about 2 years ago when I was working at Rooster Teeth, I asked for an incredibly low rate because I didn't know what I was worth as an artist. And they offered me more saying like, yeah, what you offered us was way too low. And even looking back on it now, what they gave me was incredibly low.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like, and I didn't really start knowing what I was worth as far as rates go until like July. Because they were like, hey, we're going to pay you this much a day. And I was like, so it was like, it's like, yeah, you're talented or maybe you're not doing your drawings, but this is what you as a person, your value, this is what your time is worth. Yeah. You are worth this much a day, you know, and you shouldn't take anything lower than that.
Yeah.
So that's like something I wish I knew earlier, but even now, like knowing that the past couple months has really helped me like position myself in a place for for success at this new job. They offered me more than what I was actually hoping for. Like I was hoping for like, hey, flat rate, I want X amount of money in my head,
right?
And I was ready to like for them to like
counter
offer with like something really low. But then they offered me more, and then I was like, my buddy was like, cool, they offered you more than what you wanted. Ask for more.
Yeah.
So and it was like, and the thing is. It's like I was able to ask for more because I was like, hey, I'm an assistant editor, but I'm going to be bringing my own tablet in, my own equipment. I'm going to be bringing skills that like otherwise you're not going to get with other people.
Yeah.
So I was able to ask for more. Nice. So what I wish I would have known earlier has helped me get this position of like knowing what you're worth as a person, value wise, like money wise.
Just real quick before we cut to Instagram questions, is I know we talked about this on the last podcast, but where can people go to check out your personal work?
Okay, Instagram I'm Napoleon Chavez _ at Instagram. On Twitter I'm Drilly812. I still haven't changed it. I know last time I talked about Twitch. I haven't done Twitch since we did that last podcast. Maybe I'll try to start doing stuff on there. I'm Napo Valley on Twitch. What else? I have a website called NapoleonChavez.com, and the most important one of all, UncleDoggy.com is where you can buy our shirts. We're working on trying to get our stickers on there as well, but as of right now, we have 3 different shirts. The Uncle Doggy window design, we have the Jungle Bums t-shirt, which is a really nice design, and then the least popular but my favorite is the King K. Rool shirt.
I love that one.
Oh, really? Awesome. So, yeah, I can't wait till the next time I come back on the podcast.
Yes! Yeah. And insert promo code here. And now we're back with your questions from Instagram. So, Christian, shoot away.
Here we go. The first one is from Garrett Nicole.
Oh!
From school.
I know that boy.
Yes.
He's a good boy.
Yeah, and speaking of the Ground Zero pop-up, he was there.
His question is, what's From Crumbly's up to these days?
Oh, okay. From Crumbly's little red bearded square man. The last time I saw him, he was hanging out in Santee Alley in LA, walking around. He was hanging out on the beach. He flew way up into the clouds, and he's still going through the stratosphere. He's looking for inspiration to write his novel. So I'll let you know when he comes back with his first chapter. Yeah. He hasn't hit me up, but I know that he's always with me. He's always a part of my heart right here. So.
And for those who don't know who From Crumbly's is, he's a character in your not only animations but also comics, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, next one from our friend Daniel Dugenberg. What was the hardest part about starting a clothing brand?
Ooh, okay. Well, I want to give a shout out to Daniel because he always calls me Shabby Naps. The name will never catch on, but I appreciate it. The hardest part about starting a clothing brand was probably like the business back end of it, because it's like it's fun to like make the designs and whatever, and especially when you're working so closely with one of your best friends, it's like there has to be a point where you like switch off the friend part and just do business, where it's like, okay, we have to think about the back end of the website. We have to think about what shirts we're printing at, like what kind of material we're doing, like what's a fun drawing that we like, but what's something that people would actually want to buy, and having those harder conversations. But to answer the question, probably the hardest part is like switching off that part of like, hey, we're friends and we're just doing this for fun, but switching it into business mode, you know? And that's one thing that we've switched off, is that now we're back to being friends, because that's important, because you will burn yourself out if it's all just business.
Yeah.
Next question is from Vanessa G. She asks you to define hip-hop, please.
Dude, I did it before you finished the question. What I feel is hip-hop is when you surgically attach your arms to your back, and you just love all the people around you, and you use hip-hop as a way to include people in what you're talking about, because hip-hop is the universal language of getting down and having fun.
Hell yeah.
Because at the end of the day, what are we? That's hip-hop.
And you guys have like secret handshake, I swear, when you guys see each other about hip-hop.
Awesome, because I don't get to see Vanessa that often, but when I do see her, it's hip-hop.
And really, what else are we?
Well, what else are we? She started doing that to me because I didn't remember why. Like, there was one time we were in our art history class, and like we were just gonna be there to like hear the results of our test and then leave, and like she was sitting down and all the seats were taken, so I just sat on the stairs next to like the seats, and I just had my arms crossed like this, and I was like this, just like sitting, and she's like, Napoleon, what are you doing? And I'm like, and this is her memory, I don't remember doing this. All I said, I looked at her, I was like, that's hip-hop.
Now we got from my friend Matt at school.
Woo!
He goes by Matthew Marmalade on Instagram. And he said, did you ever want to be on Legends of the Hidden Temple or Double Dare when you were young?
I definitely wanted to be on Double Dare because those obstacle courses looked so much fun. I wanted to climb through those ears and the nose, unless I'm thinking of the other show with Mark Summers. But I always wanted to climb through those obstacle courses. I always thought it'd be the funnest thing in the world. So yeah, I actually did want to do those shows because you could win a Razor scooter. Yeah, and I always wanted one because my brother had one that he broke.
Oh.
And I wanted my own because he wouldn't let me use it. So.
Oh, bummer.
I know.
And that's hip hop.
So the next question is from Stacy Larios, who goes by Indigo Rave on Instagram. And she asks, what Super Smash Bros. Is your main?
Oh. You know what I'm doing right now? I'm doing a lot of Princess Zelda. Princess Zelda is like the thing is in that game, I pick it just based on like how they look. And like Princess Zelda is like my favorite like new design because she like they made her a lot more fun and she's like way more sassy. Like all her animations, it's like she's like waving her hands. She does like these anime poses and like she has like this really expressive face. Like all of them have like really good expressive faces. Like King K. Rool is like one of my favorite characters. He's like just this giant monster and he's like a goofball and he's like bah! And he has his eyes poking out. But right now I've been playing a lot of Princess Zelda and I want to try and get good with her. Just because, like, I think it's so cool, like, to, like, throw somebody off the edge and then, like, do, like, a sassy pose. So, Princess Zelda right now.
Well, and that brings up a secondary question, which maybe she was asking too, which is what version of Smash Bros. Is your main?
Right now it's Ultimate. Ultimate's the big one. Growing up, I played a lot of Melee, but it was way too quick for me. I was never good at it. Brawl was probably the one I played the most because it had the story mode. Brawl was, it had a lot going for it. I played Brawl constantly. I loved that game. I was never good at it, but I think Ultimate is the one that I'm leaning towards now, just because it has everything in it. Like it has all the characters. So it's like there's no reason for me to go back to the other versions because everything is in that one. Yeah. So right now it's Ultimate.
There you go. Sweet. And our last one from your friend Kaya Herman.
Whoa! Shout out to Kaya Herman.
And her question is, if you listen to her podcast that we did with her not too long ago, which is, Napoleon, why don't you work on our podcast?
My answer to that is just she knows why. It's because both of us have become incredibly busy. Like, she's become incredibly busy with her job. And it's a lot easier now just because, like, now I'm living in the LA area now. So it's going to be easier once we both get, like, a little bit more situated. But the real answer is why I haven't is just because I need to sit down and watch a bunch of Netflix stuff.
You're a busy guy. We talked about that in the podcast.
I'm a busy guy. What do you want from me, Kyle? What do you want? You know I'm busy. Camera on me. People can go to Napoleon Chavez _ at Instagram. People can go to Drilly812 on Twitter. People can go to Napo Valley on Twitch. People can go to UncleDoggy.com to buy the shirts. People can go to NapoleonChavez.com to see a big array of my stuff. I believe if you want to see any of my animations and cartoons, go to NapoleonChavez.com.
And if you're feeling sad about missing From Crumblies while he's working on his novel, you can always go back and relive those good memories.
Absolutely.
Because that's hip-hop.
Because that's hip-hop!
Oh man, what an episode and what a guy.
I know, Napoleon's great, so I'm so glad that we were able to get him on this part 2 episode.
Now, we do have some shout-outs that we gotta get to from our little escapade down in Ground Zero Animation Expo.
Yes, and many fantastic artists we met, and we're making our way through promoting all of them.
But before we get to that, we want to say that we have something very special for our listeners.
Yes, only for podcast listeners. We've got the Uncle Doggy promo code.
Woo!
On Uncle Doggy's website. That's UncleDoggy.com. UCA podcast for Up and Coming Artist Podcast is the promo code.
Get yourself a shirt. Get it for cheap. Get it. Be happy.
And that promo code is going to be for free shipping. This is a temporary thing, so you guys got to hop on it quick. But it's super awesome of Napoleon and Alex to do this for us. So if you guys are interested in some super cool shirts, That's UCA Podcast. I really should have made that easier for people.
But yeah, go support an artist. Let them know that their work is great with your wallet.
Yeah. Head on over to UncleDoggy.com. And while you're there online, stop on over to Instagram and check out these awesome drawings Napoleon did of us. They're super dope just for the podcast. So check that out. Hey, and while you're on Instagram, check out these amazing artists that we're here to shout out.
What a transition. So the first one on the list today, if you're looking for or interested in visual development, go check out Kaylin Kennedy. That's at Mimi Ranger, M-I-M-I Ranger.
Yes, and we got an awesome sticker from her on our sign at Ground Zero, so shout out.
Sticker wall!
And now, if you're looking for someone who does fantastic illustration and is an advocate for breakfast,
Yes!
check out Megan Van Voorhees, who goes by Oh No, It's Feo on Instagram. That's Feo as in Pheo. And we had her in our last episode, our Ground Zero Animation Expo live at the event episode, so check that out.
And anyone who's a fan of breakfast, I am a fan of them. Next on the list, if you're looking for 2D and stop motion animation, go check out Thomas Reddick. That's at ArtMage Tommy, Art M-A-G-E Tommy. Like good old Tommy boy.
The pipes are cold. Now, Thomas is great. I've met him at a couple events, and he's really got some fun stuff over there. So check out his 2D and stop motion on Instagram. Also, check out, speaking of animation, the next two guys we have are in animation. So we have an indie filmmaker, Chris Magia. I'm a friend of Chris, but I've never actually asked him the pronunciation of his last name. So we're going with that, and that's at Chris Magia Tunes on Instagram, so check him out.
Magia with a J, by the way.
Yes.
And then last, we got a 3D animation guy. I think it's a guy.
Yeah, my friend Rudy with the beard. Yeah, he's.
Sorry, Rudy.
Yeah.
Go check out Rudy Solorzano. That's at rudy.solorzano. Solorzano.
Yeah, check him out on Instagram. Not only are these people that we know personally, but their work really is exceptional. So go check out their work. And Christian, I think we're ready to wrap this up. Do you have any last words?
I leave it all to my kids.
And I'm leaving you guys with Uncle Doggy promo code UCA Podcast.